Tonight is the final discussion group for Uncovering and Embracing Soul Power. So I wanted to take this evening to kind of look at a number of the concepts that we were talking about over the last 8 weeks and incorporate them into functional ways in order to make our lives more beautiful, to make our hearts bigger, to make our awareness greater. So I'm going to start with a little film that I saw that I think provokes a lot of discussion. And I think the film very much aligns with Uncovering and Embracing Soul Power. And part of what we're going to be talking about is where the alignment is and where you and how you have had this opportunity to evolve and grow from the process. So I'm going to start right now. You guys ready? Any questions, any thoughts?
No, we're good. Illusion of separateness.
Okay. Soul Power Week 8. The Egg by Andy Weir. Using the video The Egg, based on the story by Andy Weir, is a fantastic way to enhance discussion on awareness and healing. This story offers profound insights into themes of interconnectedness, empathy, and the nature of existence, which can be deeply resonant with the message in our book, Uncovering and Embracing Soul Power. This video explores deep philosophical questions about life and purpose, similar to the themes discussed in your book. Watch the video with particular attention to how it depicts the interconnectedness of all lives and evolution of the soul, key concepts that you will explore through Ho'oponopono and other practices in the book.
You were on your way home when you died. It was a car accident. Nothing particularly remarkable, but fatal nonetheless. It was a painless death. The medics tried their best to save you, but to no avail. Your body was so utterly shattered, you were better off, trust me. And that's when you met me. What happened? Where am I? You died, I said, matter-of-factly. No point in mincing words. There was a truck, and it was skidding. Yes. I died. Yes. But don't feel bad about it. Everyone dies. You looked around. There was nothingness, just you and me. What is this place? Is this the afterlife? More or less. Are you God? Yes, I'm God. My kids? My wife? What about them? Will they be all right? That's what I like to see, I said. You just died and your main concern is for your family. That's good stuff right there. You looked at me with fascination. To you, I didn't look like God. I just looked like some man or possibly a woman. Some vague authority figure, maybe. Don't worry, I said. They'll be fine. Your kids will remember you as perfect in every way. They didn't have time to grow contemptuous of you. Your wife will cry on the outside, but will be secretly relieved. To be fair, your marriage was falling apart. If it's any consolation, she'll feel very guilty for feeling relieved. Oh, so what happens now? Do I go to heaven or hell or something? Neither. You'll be reincarnated. Ah. So the Hindus were right. All religions are right in their own way. Walk with me. You followed along as we strode through the void. Where are we going? Nowhere in particular. It's just nice to walk while we talk. So, what's the point then? When I get reborn, I'll just be a blank slate, right? A baby. So all my experiences and everything I did in this life won't matter. Not so. You have within you all the knowledge and experiences of all your past lives. You just don't remember them right now. I stopped walking and took you by the shoulders. Your soul is more magnificent, beautiful, and gigantic than you can possibly imagine. A human mind can only contain a tiny fraction of what you are. It's like sticking your finger in a glass of water to see if it's hot or cold. You put a tiny part of yourself into the vessel, and when you bring it back out, you've gained all the experiences it had. You've been in a human for the last 48 years, so you haven't stretched out yet and felt the rest of your immense consciousness. If we hung out here for long enough, you'd start remembering everything. But there's no point to doing that between each life. How many times have I been reincarnated then? Oh, lots. Lots and lots. And into lots of different lives. This time around, you'll be a Chinese peasant girl in 540 AD. Wait, what? You're sending me back in time? Well, I guess technically, time as you know it only exists in your universe. Things are different where I come from. Where you come from? Oh, sure. I come from somewhere else. And there are others like me. I know you'll want to know what it's like there, but honestly, you wouldn't understand. Oh, you said, a little let down. But wait, if I get reincarnated to other places in time, I could have interacted with myself at some point. Sure, happens all the time. And with both lives only aware of their own lifespan, you don't even know it's happening. So, what's the point of it all? I looked you in the eye. The meaning of life, the reason I made this whole universe, is for you to mature. You mean mankind? You want us to mature? No, just you. I made this whole universe for you. With each new life, you grow and mature and become a larger and greater intellect. Just me? What about everyone else? There is no one else. In this universe, there's just you and me. You stared blankly at me. But all the people on Earth, all you, different incarnations of you. Wait, I'm everyone. Now you're getting it. I'm every human being who ever lived. Or who will ever live. Yes. I'm Abraham Lincoln. And you're John Wilkes Booth too. I'm Hitler, you said, appalled. And you're the millions he killed. I'm Jesus. And you're everyone who followed him. You fell silent. Every time you victimized someone, you were victimizing yourself. Every act of kindness you've done to yourself. Every happy and sad moment ever experienced by any human was or will be experienced by you. You thought for a long time. Why? Why do all this? Because someday you will become like me. Because that's what you are. You're one of my kind. You're my child. Wow, you said incredulous. You mean I'm a god? No, not yet. You're a fetus. You're still growing. Once you've lived every human life throughout all time, you will have grown enough to be born. So the whole universe, it's just an egg, I answered. Now it's time for you to move on to your next life. And I sent you on your way.
By the way, John, you were correct. You said you know, huh? Okay. It's weird. WEIR.
Review of the egg and its themes of awareness. How does the concept presented in the egg, that all souls are interconnected and essentially aspect of a single university entity, parallel the ideas of unity and non-duality explored in our book Soul Power? The video suggests that every life is a lesson for the soul. Reflect on how this viewpoint aligns with the lessons from the book about growth through challenges and the importance of self-awareness. Consider how the idea that we are all one might influence our approach to healing and forgiveness. If every interaction is essentially with oneself, how does this challenge our approaches to conflict and personal healing?
Okay, Jocelyn, this is yours. So just read it and then, respond to it. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. The illusion of separateness. How does recognizing the illusion of separateness affect our approach to social and personal issues? What are the challenges in accepting that all life experiences are essentially shared? How might this perspective change the way you relate to people who seem very different from you? If separateness is an illusion, how should we approach global issues like climate change or inequality? Can understanding our interconnectedness help resolve feelings of loneliness or isolation? How? So, as I think about the illusion of separateness, I think to the time when I was a little girl. I think I was 7. And it was at that age that I realized that I was separate and distinct from my mother and father, my cousins, my sister, all the people who were around me. And at that moment, I felt like I was something very different from all of them. But up until that point, I realized that I never thought I was different or separate from any of them. And I think that through soul power and through all of the spiritual teachings, there is a part that really comes through about remembering who we really are. And so right now, I'll speak to a Trump experience, because I know everybody's having a reaction one way or another to this. So one of my daughter's girlfriends is dating a guy who is a Trump supporter. My daughter is outraged by this, and she shared with me one of his social media rants that he did. And in this rant, he said, "We're not fascists, we're not racist, we're not, any one of a number of things that Trump himself may actually be and has been called. All we want is to, live our lives without interference from the government, and to be free and just to love," and goes on and on.
How do you vote for Trump?
And in that, as I read what he wrote, what I realized was that he certainly has internalized all of the attacks that Trump has experienced. But he also, in his last statement, when he talked about just wanting, we just want this, I realized that the things that he was saying that he wanted are the things that I want, that most people want, that we want to be free, we want to love, we want to be able to succeed and prosper. And yet, he certainly felt like the other. And so from my perspective, at the point that we believe we are separate and different from everyone else, it makes it very hard for us to see the ways in which we are alike.
Yes.
And so in watching the egg, it kind of reminds me that there are there are all sides to us, which are all which we can experience. The actions or reactions of one person versus another, we experience that. In your book, if you're aware of that, then it's you too, and you have to step up and take responsibility for it through Ho'oponopono. And you have an opportunity then to heal it.
Yes.
So that's what I took from this.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. You said you just finished the book again today. How did you resonate with the main concept of the book of non-duality and oneness? How does that resonate with you?
This is a trick question because you know how I often answer this and the parts of it that are hard for me to reconcile. But I do believe ultimately that I'm one, that there is no separation in consciousness and spirituality from me and the universal consciousness, God, space. And so today, when I finished reading Soul Power again, and I was reading the stories, and you talked very personally about experiences that we were both sharing at some point and how you grew through these experiences. It just reminded me of how transformative, how transcendent, how despite the way things may appear, that there are miracles and blessings and everything. I ended this book with a really good and positive feeling about life and the opportunities that lie within now and going forward.
Love that. Yes. Well, what is the concept of remember to remember mean to you?
That gets back to the story that I was telling. At 7, I realized I was separate. It really gets back to remembering that love is all that exists, that, I am one with everything, everyone, that I've got to remember, even when I get caught in this human world and I get frustrated or angry or disappointed or afraid or any of those things, that I'm not any of those things.
Yes.
Depending on which religion or prayer you're reading at the time, I'm whole, perfect, and complete. That all is good. There's nothing wrong. There doesn't have to be any want because I already have all that's needed. It's remembering all of those kinds of things, but ultimately remembering that I'm love and love is all that exists.
Very good, Jonathan. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, this is Charles.
The role of forgiveness in healing. How forgiveness can be transformative, not just for interpersonal relationships, but for personal growth and self-awareness. How does forgiveness facilitate healing on more than just an emotional level? What does it mean to forgive yourself in the context of understanding life as interconnected experiences? Can forgiveness influence your physical health? And if so, how? I have a very clear premise for myself now on forgiveness, deeper than I've ever held before, and realized that the most important reality of all is self-forgiveness. Because until I have dealt with that, and there's a wonderful new book out called Issues in Your Tissues by Angel Howard. And I'm reading that at this time. And the incredible pain and judgment and all that we store in our mind that impacts our bodies through our life is immense. And I have felt that I've always had the capacity to forgive others and situations. I've had generational sexual abuse in my family, and I've been able to come to a whole new place of being the observer of that, not the judge. But I always held to be the judge and executioner of my own life. And in the past few months, I have been able to see myself differently because I'm the observer that I want everyone else to be now. I'm the observer of things, and in that I have accountability, so that everything that's here, um, forgiveness is essential to the path of the remembrance of. We're here for love alone,
Yes.
and that the work that we do within ourselves to let go of stories that block, that bind us to the past and being the victim, that I may have an experience of being a victim, but it's not the truth and never was.
Was.
So all this on the role of forgiveness and healing, the word healing means you come to a new perspective of how you see something, and
Yes.
it's liberating. So everything that ties in here in these questions is essential. It's the most important, vital work we have.
It is.
First, self-forgiveness, and then realizing that authentic forgiveness emerges out of that, where you can, in that beautiful video, realize how interconnected we all are. And we're all, I said earlier in our pre-conversation, out of chaos, miracles happen.
Does.
And I believe that's what's occurring on our planet. Out of chaos, miracles can and will emerge. And that's what I want to live for. And so my role is keep on forgiving, Charles. And as long as I'm breathing, there's forgiveness work to do.
Right. That's very good, Charles. Does anybody else have any comments to these questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
What are the and I don't know the answer, so I'm
No.
asking the question. What are the behaviors of forgiveness, the specific behaviors of forgiveness that actually lead to the healing? And that's one question. And then why is it more difficult to forgive yourself than it is to forgive others?
Yeah, that's a good question. The word is suffering. Suffering is a level of dissonance where things aren't what we believe they should be. Things don't look like we think they should be. That suffering, that this dissonance, that resistance to what is when we find forgiveness, is when we are open to forgiveness. Because if not, we're still.
So the behaviors of forgiveness are to explore the suffering.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Explore the suffering.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Dawn, for that. All right, you're up next, John.
Okay. You guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, awesome. All right, universal responsibility and empathy, understanding the responsibility we hold for each other as part of a whole, and how empathy is a natural extension of this responsibility. I'll take it a question at a time. In what ways does acting with universal responsibility challenge conventional attitudes towards personal success and competition? So what I get from this in the video is that universal responsibility is to some degree acting as one with God or all that is. So my responsibility is to be able to come from that space and be able to see everything outside of me as being a part of that space. So from what I might deem as being um, personal success, I actually view personal success as the actual remembering to remember.
Hmm.
That's a personal success right there because everything else is really perspective about achieving a particular result. And competition is almost like, you have winners and losers. And when you talk about being one with all that is, there is no winning and losing. It all exists. It's all about perspective and whether or not you think one person has more than the other. I mean, granted, in the world of duality that we operate in, it's something that becomes very paramount. But in reality, anything that relates to success and competition to some degree is really reinforcing the ego.
It is.
Um, yeah, so that's kind of like how I see
So
that.
let me ask
N-
you a question. In the movie they showed, they said you're Hitler and you're the people who were victimized by Hitler. You're Abraham Lincoln and you're John Wilkes Booth, the guy who killed him. They were both.
Mhm. Well,
And
it's basically, and all that is, you have a continuum, and there are forces that operate, I think, on both ends and extremes, right? So it's about, if it's all there, then I guess in the world of duality, you have the potential to be able to see the opposite of everything
yeah,
that currently exists, right? And there's one thing that I think was not mentioned in the video that I subscribe to from a belief system is that I incarnated to be able to experience what it's like not to be one with. And that's what the way, a lot of the spiritual teachings teach us that, it's if God is all that is, then basically how does it know what it is? So to be able to experience itself, it has to create some level of separation, which I believe the course talks about being the tiny mad idea. So
hmm,
that's that from that concept perspective, then yeah, I kind of see how in that continuum or in the world of duality, yes, you do see that. But if you're one with all that is, then you're all those things as well.
yes.
That's how I see, to answer your question.
Okay.
All right. How can cultivating greater empathy improve our lives and the lives of those around us? I mean, empathy for me, again, if you're acting from the space that is God, it's love, it's basically how you treat other people. And it's not just about the way you kind of treat them or being understanding or empathetic, but it's also like, how can I serve? I think that's the greatest demonstration of forgiveness and demonstrating a power that that is all that is that we're a part of is to be able to demonstrate that loving serving attitude towards others. What practical steps can we take to develop a deeper sense of empathy and connectedness in our daily interactions? And I think the most important practice really is prayer and meditation. I think those two practices are the two that really help us to remember. And if we affirm that each day, we can enter each day with, again, that perspective that allows us to be able to see that we're one that is, and our daily interactions with people become exactly that. I actually experienced that this morning because I hopped out of bed and, I'm not consistent with prayer and meditation, but I took some time to really be very honest, um, send an honest, loving prayer of remembrance, and affirmation. And my day went pretty smoothly. I'm pretty pleased overall. I'm grateful, extremely grateful today. What
Well,
practical steps can we develop? Go ahead.
yeah, before we leave that, what do
Mhm.
you think about we were talking about what to cultivate greater empathy, improve our lives and the lives of others around us. I'm really intrigued with the concept of an unlikely ally. We had talked about that before. An unlikely ally is somebody who's, there's a lot of causes in the world. There's a lot of people who are suffering. There's a lot
Mhm.
people have their point of views, and their point of views are contracted because there's from their experience there's been pain and suffering too. An unlikely ally is when you allow yourself to feel somebody else's pain, when you allow yourself to relate to somebody and be an advocate for their whatever their cause is. And I think that's going to be an important tool for the future that we all need to. We talked about this before, Charles, before about how to identify our unlikely allies, people in this world who are not invested in a cause, but they care about the world, so they're aligning with the cause. And I'm seeing that as becoming a big thing in the future. That people stop trying to control their little world. They're seeing themselves as universal world people and want to connect with other people's heart and soul and challenges and problems. And it's making us all seem to be more similar, more have things in common. And to have an unlikely ally to me is somebody who you wouldn't think would be on your side, but they are on your side. You know, you don't think there's somebody that'll see it your way, but they not only do they see it your way, but they embrace your point of view because they validate your pain. And these are unlikely people, people that you wouldn't suspect. And I think that's an also way of having empathy as a tool to help transform the world. We need to connect with the other and find ways in order to be part of their challenges or their their evolution or their healing.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. I see that, and I think my role for where I am in life today is really to be able to see it, quote unquote, right, which is based on the truth of the oneness that was spoken of today. And that's really what it boils down to. So yeah, I can empathize with people. The and here is that I also have to see them as being all it is as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, and that's and
In
that.
particular are very exceptional at that.
Mhm.
You have a way of connecting with in AA with people and their struggle and their heart, and you sit there and you hold the light for them. And I always thought that was a beautiful quality of yours, that you see these people who are often broken or often, living out of their dysfunction, but you're holding the light for them. And that's really been a beautiful part of you. And I've appreciated that in my life.
I guess I'm no longer anonymous, but that's okay. Anyway, how can we practice empathy in a way that it becomes a transformative tool for personal and societal change? I think um, in recovery and in AA, there's a saying that says when you point the finger at someone else, you have three pointing back at you. That's a very common one that's used. And I think the empathy in practice is one that really is about my change and how I'm showing up in the world, and following and adding to what you said earlier about what I take it as is being fully self-expressed, not holding back on our truth, and letting people know, even those people with opposing points of view, that there's another way of looking at a situation. That oftentimes, you're looking at the same thing, but like for example, a great example that I hear all the time is that you're looking at a glass of water, and you're both looking at a glass of water, but you're actually looking at two sides of the glass, right? So it's kind of like, but it's still a glass of water. So it's there are a lot of ways that things can be looked at, or you're looking at the glass as half full or half empty or overflowing, either way. So those are things that perspective is something that, again, if I'm fully self-expressed with that perspective and choose to show it to others and be able to show up godlike, or show up from that point of view, then that's how I think you become the example for others to be able to maybe say, oh, how do you navigate through this world of so much separation and both sides and everything else? How do you manage to stay calm in the face of adversity? How do you take bad news and bounce back so quickly? Those are all things that we can certainly share the way we look at the world. And that's basically through this whole entire experience that we're all sharing, as it relates to the political climate. That's kind of like how I moved on, it's really putting a focus back on those things that I know that I can control. I did what I could with a vote. And then after that, I let go of the rest. It doesn't belong to me. What belongs to me is how I show up in the world and how I react to what's happening around me. And that's how I create my experience and help maybe to positively influence the experience of others.
Others. Yeah, I love that, man.
And that's all from me.
Is that
Thank
the
you for asking me to share. Huh? That's the last question. I think I hit all four of them.
You did. I guess you did.
All
Okay.
right.
All right. Well, so we're kind of moving beyond right now. I've got a video that I want to show that is one of my favorite videos. And after I show the video, I want to hopefully have the discussion on it because I started using this video maybe 10 years ago and I re-edited it and it meant so much to me that I wanted to show it again at this final group meeting. So I'm going to show it to you now. It's from a teacher that I used to spend a lot of time listening to their videos and reading their books. So I'm hoping you guys will enjoy them and we'll have some good discussion afterwards. You guys remember him? We used to, yeah. All right.
There are those in this world who can naturally be in a state of peace and love that can transform the livelihoods of all hearts naturally. And there are many beings that look at that and go, how do I get some of that? And the beings that want that, do you want to know what's in the way of that natural radiance? It's called my understanding. Anytime you have a debate or a conflict with someone, what's the point of contention? You might say, well, it's my understanding. There's the conflict, do you see? My understanding is always where the problem is. In a world where we're still not necessarily on a global level fully embracing the gift of diversity, because some expressions of diversity rub up against what people call my understanding. And when you are in a mental domain called my understanding, there's a belief that there's something that's right and there's something that's wrong. Now, there is something that's right and something that's wrong only for you. That's called your character. Each of us have a moral code to determine what's right and wrong for us. But to imagine that what's right and wrong for you is equally the same right and wrong for others, well, that oversight is created by something called my understanding. Anytime you have something called my understanding, you either have something you're afraid to forget knowing, as if I don't keep remembering these words, I'm not going to be in this groovy spiritual state anymore. Or something called my understanding is what you try to sell to people whom you're trying to uplift and transform. And then when other people don't resonate with your understanding, they can be judged as they just don't get it yet. When in fact, the only one who doesn't actually get it is the one who has an understanding to sell or defend or maintain. My understanding is what goes, and what remains is love. Love is the only understanding. It can only be demonstrated. Demonstrating love is the only understanding of it. You cannot explain love like dance choreography. Okay, here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to put my right arm here. You put your left arm. It's not a dance. Love just engages and it doesn't explain itself.
Hello.
And understanding has everything to lose, has so much to maintain and keep straight, And the one thing that understanding can't do, that love can, is engage with anyone. And isn't that the benchmark of a mature spiritual being? Not what you know, not even what you've experienced. What is the quality of your engagement with any person? Can you meet everyone where they're at and not wedge spiritual pretense between two hearts? Can you stand in the presence of someone who insults your character, breathe it in, and say thank you? Do you know who can't do that? Those who have something called my understanding. My understanding is what you wake up out of. And what helps you wake up out of something called my understanding is love. So for those of you that have known how I teach, you know that I often teach that we come together and we learn to become the ones who recognize that the patterns of emotions that we feel in our bodies that often are triggered in our everyday lives in the most frustrating and inconvenient of moments. Not sure it's ever happened to you. Maybe you knew someone it happened to. And every time an emotion comes up, it's like a reminder of an emotion from your past history where you felt this emotion but weren't loved and supported by those from your past the way you hoped to be. And the invitation of love is to recognize the emotion and say, can I be the one that gives myself the love and support that I didn't receive before? And that process of what I call loving what arises unravels attachments and dependencies on the only barrier to clarity, and that's called my understanding. If there's too much understanding, even the invitation to love your heart will almost seem foolish or silly or cheesy. Why am I doing this? Love my heart. I have way too much understanding for this. I'm far too brilliant to love my heart and to transform all of existence with the power of my love. I'm way too wise for this. At a certain stage of your development, that's where you find the biggest BS in existence, is understanding, because it gets in the way of everything. Because anything you understand, all you got to do is be in the presence of someone who understands it differently, and we have a friendly debate that can turn into a shouting match real quick. It just depends on how passive aggressive people want to be. Someone who has understanding to defend engages with love. Here's my understanding. That's nice. Thank you for sharing. I love you. And that stops real quick. Because when you get onto love as the eternal invitation into awakening the light of existence within you, what you're asked to hand over, what you're asked as a way of lightening the load so your heart can burst open and feel safe, is your understanding. What's the cover charge to get into the nightclub in heaven? It's called your understanding. Many people knocking on the door of heaven. Please, God, let me in. Oh, you can come into heaven. Okay. Anything you want. Oh, anything? Okay, I would like your understanding. Oh. But God, if I give you my understanding, how will I be? Oh, I don't know. That's the game, though. And what gives you the courage to actually understand the intelligent nuances of a spiritual journey way beyond the confines of understanding is love. And there are many who have received this invitation I've given to practice loving themselves. And then what happens is that oftentimes loving yourself either becomes something on your spiritual to-do list, or it becomes something that you remind yourself that you should do more often and becomes another reason to feel bad about yourself. Sound familiar? So someone in my position has to keep redefining the teaching and breaking it down into smaller pieces. We all know that love is what frees you from the grip of understanding. Even though when you awaken in consciousness, there are many understandings and they're all beautiful, they're wonderful. I could talk all day about the understandings I've had throughout my life. But I will also tell you that the highest level of understanding is the absence of all understanding. The highest understanding is no understanding at all. And that's what's so strange about this. And the only difference between immortality and ignorance is there are those who don't understand what they don't understand. And there are those that know there's nothing to understand. And those two people are the same and worlds apart. It's very strange. It's like you start your journey not knowing anything, and you end your journey realizing why you didn't know anything. And everything you learned through the whole journey is what you keep waking up out of. And in the end, you wind up with the exact same you had in the beginning. Nothing, but now you know why. And if you're lucky, what you'll end up with is a heart overflowing with love and not understanding at all. Because understanding is the seed of conflict. Understanding is the instigator of mania. Understanding is what festers in minds and creates mental illness. Love is what resolves it all. And for those of us that have had some really blockbuster understandings, if you think the understandings you've had have served you well, try living without them. It's delicious. Next time someone cuts you off in traffic, try not understanding why it happened. You'll be in the greatest state of peace. Oh, I have no idea why that just happened. Next time someone yells at you, I have no idea why this is happening right now. Peace, just like that. People who want to be in peace think they know. Oh, I know why they're yelling at me, and here's going to be why they're not at peace. All you have to do is not understand why it's happening, and it's a very open, innocent experience. Again, a lot of things I teach are backdoor approaches to everything, because a lot of you have heard it all. So I've got to flip it upside down to show you something different. Dare to not know why anything happens, and your life will be amazing. And just see that what is causing your life to be so painful is not the things that are happening, but the reasons you think it's happening. Even if you say, I don't know why things are happening, but I think there's a reason and I'm going to figure it out. Whoa, there's the problem. But if you sat with, I don't know why this is happening, a lot more fun. Because everything in your life is going to happen. Your consciousness doesn't determine the outcomes of your journey. That's already set into motion by your fate. But your freedom of will determines the quality of your experience. So you can have a good time or a not so good time. You're going to have a heart-centered time or a fearful time. And it all depends on your attachment and dependency to understanding. And what frees you from that existential addiction to understanding is self-love.
All right. All right, guys. Hey, Vivian's here. So what did you guys think of that video? Any thoughts? Yes. Vivian.
Well, I first picked up A Course in Miracles in the 80s, and then I picked it up again in about 2013, 2014. And in the very beginning, it says, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. That made no sense to me, none. And then there's a lesson in Course in Miracles on forgiveness, lesson 121. And I've worked on it now for about 6 months. And I've done the whole Ho'oponopono. And so I now get it that nothing real can be threatened. And like he said, love and nothing unreal exists, our understanding.
Yes, that's good. Very good, Vivian. Very good. Anybody else have any thoughts about understanding? Alana?
I think he touched on so many thought-provoking points. It's hard to summarize it in just one sentence. I just want to step back to the first slide, if I may. That's all right with you.
Yes, that's fine.
I wanted to make a point there as well and talk about separation is an illusion. And something that came to mind, actually two things came to mind, is that we are taught that we are separate from a very young age. I went to church schools for 8 years of my life. And, I was taught that God was separate from me and he was untouchable. He was out there somewhere, right? Yeah. That was a big, big, huge thing. But growing into that, yes. So having to deprogram myself from that separation was huge. I'm still to this day, still working on that. I'm closer than I was back then, but it's still a work in progress because we are taught that we're separate. I'll never forget, there was a series on TV called Touched by an Angel many years ago. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And in one scene, there was a young lady that was on drugs and she found herself in prison, and Romy, the actress, the angel, appeared to her while she was in prison. And this young lady said, well, I think God has forgotten me. And the angel said to her, no, you've lost your connection to God.
Mm.
And she had to sort of talk her through redefining herself as a part of God. She still didn't quite get it. I think a lot of us struggle with that, is that we know verbally and intellectually, yes, we are one with God. But it's not until we start doing meditation and self-inquiry and hope that we start getting closer to source. And one of the things I've been working on as well is going into the void and really working on closing down my mind, which is so hard. My mind, like this all the time. But going into the void, and and every so often I get this jolt of, yes, I get it, I understand. I'm able to shut down that mind and get into the void, and then I can really feel source, really feel I'm not separate. Then I come back to the world, have to face, the elections and all kind of stuff. You say to yourself, what the hell happened? But yeah, just remaining connected to source as much as possible. Yeah. And I have certain things I do to remind myself during the day when I find myself going in this direction, and I have to come back, into alignment with all the hard work I put into try and keep my connection. So
I think that's excellent. I think that hopefully one of the big things that you guys have been able to come out of this from this book club is that becoming aware of my feelings, becoming aware of my judgments, becoming aware of my contractions gives me the freedom to see it differently. But when I'm believing my contractions, when I'm believing my fear and my pain, when I'm believing it, telling myself a story about it, there's no way out. I've got to be able to see myself beyond the human moment I'm in and become aware that I'm greater than that. I have to remind myself of that constantly. I have to keep going back to the well of freedom. And once I'm there, I can bring back that aware perspective back into my life. But I always have to go back to the well for the greater awareness. But I wanted to get a little more feedback from the concept of the reason why I wanted to show the My Understanding video, and the reason why it means so much to me, because we spend a lot of time in judgment of others, a lot of time talking about the other and making the other a problem for us. And he was basically saying, from what I was experiencing, is that that's our a barrier to love. And we need to find ways in order to drop the barrier to love and reclaim our oneness with everyone. Because if we're not, we're still trying to figure it out and judge and evaluate others as different or separate from us. So we've got to always return to the well of love. So I wanted that to be something that we left you guys with tonight. Any other thoughts? Dawn, did you have something you want to say?
Yes. That was very profound to me, the whole concept of letting go of my understanding. And weird things pop in my head. I watched a part of sitcom, and there was a couple, the main couple of the sitcom had been married a long time. They were very different from each other. And another couple that was approaching divorce asked them, how did you manage to get along with your wife so well? You have a very loving marriage. What happens when you disagree? And he said, we just don't talk about it. And at first I didn't understand that. But when I listened, and then they showed how they that had happened. They came to where one person felt one way and the other, person disagreed. And once they both realized that they were not going to agree on this, they just walked away and they didn't talk about it. And they went right back to their normal relationship. And I said, wow, that's powerful. And that's what I thought of that with the whole My Understanding, because that's the basis of every human disagreement that you've had with anyone, even when it comes to politics, it's all based on, well, my understanding is this, and if you hold on to that, it can just eat you up. If you let go of it and really just focus on the love.
Yes.
It's very profound, because it's just a disagreement over nothing.
Yes. Well, that's what I've learned. I've been married for 41 years, and I'm realizing that my wife and I, wherever we have conflict, it was always about her point of view and my point of view. But I'm realizing that the point of views aren't important. What's important is the love. Is the opportunity to love, is the opportunity to see understanding or to see somebody else's heart, empathy, and being right is ridiculous because right is not necessary. It sets guards between people. Nobody wants to be wrong anyway. So if you can have relationships and everyone be right, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Newlyweds? Any other thoughts about the video?
Okay, so that's Richard and Cheryl. They are our newlyweds.
The point about everybody being right is excellent. And I thought that was, although it was at the end, I thought it made a lot of sense. It really did. Standing on principle is not what it's all about.
It's not. I love that.
It's just not.
No, but it's not. Standing up for principle usually gets you, it's just, you don't win from that one.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Too bad it can't infect society more, but it doesn't.
I think it starts with us. I think it starts with us showing us as the example.
I agree with
Showing
you.
us as peaceful souls, wanting to understand somebody else's, becoming empathetic with other people's causes,
Right.
not so quick to judge and condemn people. Oh my God. We've got to be aware of how quickly we judge and condemn people.
Mhm.
And also, this last thing, and then I'm going to turn it over to Charles. And I've said this a million times, I'm going to say it again. Righteous indignation is an addiction.
Mhm.
I am right and I want to be heard and my position is correct and you don't know what you're talking about. That righteous indignation causes us to have much dissatisfaction and much conflict. And most of us know when we're caught up in righteous indignation. We know when we're caught up in it, where we're feeling, feeling ourselves and ready to fight for whatever the point or cause is. That's that righteous indignation. We need to back off of that when that charge comes in and surrender it back to love.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts? Sydney, did
And
you?
I think doing that it doesn't take away the validity of whatever you're feeling.
No.
But that's not the point. Your feeling can be valid, but doing that says that there's something more important. There's a bigger picture. There's a more universal consciousness that should pervade. It has nothing to do with the validity of your point, So
I love that. Sydney, did you want to share something tonight?
Yeah, I just wanted to share about your book. When you got to the end and you did the Ho'oponopono with inquiry, kind of worked into it.
Yes.
I thought that was amazing. And that just kind of like blew my mind. And I didn't know that you could add those long statements to each one.
Yeah. Sydney, I want to thank you because that was my favorite part of the book also. And I'm so glad you brought that up. I love that part of the book because
Me
it's so heartfelt.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, no. You recognizing that means a lot to me.
Aw, I loved too that you did it about comparison because I really relate to that. And so, like, I just want to use almost that exact script that you wrote. So, thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Charles, we're turning it over to you. You wanted to make the last statement.
Just simply, first of all, above all, thank you. Thank you for this series. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for what you invest in and bring to us in our soulful reflection opportunity. And I just want to mention to everyone, I mentioned last week that I am creating a whole new spiritual retreat for those that want to do deeper soulful work. And Edward is one of the keynotes. And it's atimetodeepen.com is the website, atimetodeepen.com. And you'll see the keynotes. There's college professors, there's Edward, there's another beautiful soul that does work in family constellation healing, John Moore. Bottom line, please take a look at it. Consider investing in it. It's April 26th to May 1st, and it's at a place called Spirit in the Desert. It's not a resort, it's a retreat center, but all our meals will be together. It's really a great opportunity, and our theme is Reimagine Your World. And everything that we've taken in, Edward, here, it's about reimagining, but the key word is remembrance. It's only love.
Yeah.
And living from that premise, we can reimagine the world we're living in a way that can shift and change the world for future generations to predominant love. So
Yes.
please check that website out at timetodeepen.com. And Edward, I love you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate you. All right, take care, guys.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Edward, wonderful, wonderful job. Thank
Yep. Great job, Edward.
Thank you.